Welcome back, I'm Ryan from Blue Gaming, and this week on Ryan Reviews, I'm taking a look at Slay the Spire, the game that truly did early access right. Now, before we get into this, you will see that there's something different about this review than my other ones. The gameplay footage that you are seeing in the background was taken from my live stream, which there will be a link to down in the description of this video, just like all my other videos. But now, let's get into the review, starting with graphics. And right out the gate, I have to give props to the art in this game. All of the card art, all of the backgrounds, everything like that was all done by two people, and they did a spectacular job on it. Now, talking about the cards specifically, the art that you find there isn't as detailed as, say, Magic the Gathering, where they have full, huge paintings done for each card. Here, it's much more simplistic, but it still gets the point across of what the card is going to do, and it still adds a bit of flair to each of the cards. The next part that I'd like to point out is the backgrounds, because they did a wonderful job on the backgrounds, making them feel kind of large and open, but also like they're part of this spire that you are ascending. They remind me of matte paintings that you would find in some of the older movies before CG really took over. There is a downside that I have with the backgrounds though. They do get a bit samey. I know that there's only a handful of them for each art style, but they should have really kind of spiced it up for each individual one because they really just kind of blur together, although the backgrounds definitely aren't the focus for what you're doing in this game. What you're really going to be focusing on is the player model and the enemies, and while there is only 3 different classes which each give a unique look, the enemies vary drastically as you go up the spire. There's everything from common street thugs to suits of armor, all the way up to eldritch horrors, and somehow they're all believable as if they would each be in this spire that you are ascending. The real standouts for the enemies, though, are the handful of bosses that the game has and the super rare mini-bosses that the game also has. Each of them is wildly different from each other, and they are instantly recognizable just by their look. Overall, though, this game is solid in the graphics department. Next, let's move on to sound, music, and voice. I was actually really disappointed in the sound effects in this game. I wish that there was as much variety as there was in the art, but sadly, pretty much all of the attacks sound the same. Opening a chest sounds the same every single time, buying a card from the merchant. It's just a bunch of reused sound effects, and while each of them are good, I just wish that there was more. Out of all of them, though, I'm most disappointed in the attack sounds. I love using the ironclad, but I hear the same slashing sound over and over and over again. And I know that if you play the defect, you're going to drive yourself crazy with the lightning strike sound effect, because it happens all the time. But hey, hopefully the music makes up for it, right? Well, not really. If you've seen some of my previous reviews, you might know that in these fantasy games, I absolutely hate it when the game does a full orchestral score for every single piece of their music. And guess what they do here? Every single piece of the soundtrack in this game is a big orchestral score, and once again, I really don't like it. In fact, myself and many other people that I've seen play this game turn the music all the way down and just put on our own soundtracks instead, because really this orchestral music just gets boring after a while. And when it comes to video game soundtracks, being boring is just as bad as if the music was terrible all in of itself. Next, let's move on to voice, of which there is none. So let's move on to story, of which there isn't really any either. So we'll move right into gameplay. As you may have picked up already, Slay the Spire is a card-based deck-building roguelike where your objective is to start on the first floor of the spire and work your way all the way up to the top, fighting more and more powerful enemies as you go. Now, I really don't like roguelike games, but this game is also a deck-building game, which is a genre that I really like, and I think that counteracted how much I don't like roguelites, and it ended up being a very enjoyable experience for me. If you don't like deck building games, then definitely stay away from this. This is more of a deck builder than it is a roguelike. One of the great things about deck building in this game is you instantly know when you've put together a great combo. In the background footage that you're seeing, I base this entire deck around Whirlwind and try and get as many of those Whirlwinds as possible as my main damage dealer. But there are plenty of other amazing combo decks that you can make for the Ironclad as well. And that's only talking about the Ironclad. There's two other classes called the Silent and the Defect, which also have their own individual cards that you don't find while playing any of the other classes. And with that comes new ways to build decks. So there's 3 completely different ways to put together decks, and those 3 play majorly different. Like, I'm pretty decent at Ironclad. I know absolutely nothing about the other 2, and it would take me quite a bit of time to learn the other 2 as well as I know the Ironclad. In total, though, across the 3 different characters, there's more than 250 different cards that you can find and put together into decks. The game is still a roguelike though, and it brings over some of those cool aspects from that genre as well, such as the daily climbs, which sends you up with a specific character and adds on a whole ton of crazy run modifiers that really change the way that you play the game each and every time that you play it. Speaking of run modifiers, this game implements a system that I really haven't seen in many other games, called the relic system. Those are the items that you see up on the top of my screen, and each one of those is a modifier that can completely change how I play the game. To give an easy example, one of the modifiers I have is called the Black Flame. It's the modifier on the far left of the row. It allows me to heal 10 damage at the end of each combat, so I can play a much more aggressive style and get 10 health back, and I don't really have to worry about taking as much damage as if I didn't have that modifier. And that's just a basic example. There's plenty of other relics in the game that alter the way that you play much more drastically than that one. In the end though, this game just gives you that one more run mentality, because maybe your deck didn't turn out that well this time around, but maybe you'll get the right cards next time to just pull out that awesome combo that you know you can have on a certain character. With the roguelike elements added in, this game just has a sense of unpredictability that really emphasizes how great it feels to pull together an amazing deck and an amazing run. And cobbling together a great deck in Slay the Spire might be the best feeling that I've had in a deck building game, physical or digital, yet. And it is just a great feeling, and that's why I wanted to show off the footage I did in the background, because this is one of the times when I actually pulled together an amazing deck that did an insane amount of damage, did exactly what I wanted it to do, and I actually got it on camera. So now let's go into my final thoughts and let's give this game a score. If you couldn't tell, I really like Slay the Spire. I started playing it in the early parts of 2018. It had been in early access for about 5-6 months at that point, and it just kept dropping those weekly updates that kept adding more and more and more. And even though I didn't get to play it as much as I wanted to back then, playing it now as a fully fleshed out product, this is just an amazing game. Definitely, if you love deck building, there isn't enough digital deck building games out there that don't cost a ton of money. And I don't think that I'm going to be the only one to say this, but I'm pretty sure that Slay the Spire is going to be one of those talked about early access success stories that people are going to bring up for a while, because we all know how bad it is for a game to be in early access, like that stigma that comes with it. But Slay the Spire fought through that, and it ended up being a really great game. Although it did start out as a really great game, but it just kept adding more and more and more. It had those consistent weekly updates, and really it kind of broke the stigma of early access for itself. Although I am still weary of early access games in the future, as you all should be. But now, finally, let's move on to my score. If you don't know my scoring system, I give a game one of 3 different scores. Either buy it now, wait for a sale, or never touch it. And as you might obviously be able to tell, Slay the Spire is definitely a buy it now. At this price, I don't think that there's a better deck building game out there, and for the roguelite fans, I think that it's definitely going to be something that'll keep you coming back. Plus, with the 3 different characters that have drastically different playstyles, you're going to get even more time out of this game. To finish this off, I thoroughly enjoyed my time with Slay the Spire, and I think you all will too. As always, I'm Raiden from Bluewood Gaming, and I'll see you guys in the next one.